Commander Vex stood at the head of the Galactic Council chamber, his four arms gesticulating wildly as holographic displays showed the carnage left behind by the Void Stalkers. The blue-skinned Zentaurian had seen 3 wars, 2 galactic plagues, and 1 really awkward diplomatic dinner with the Slime Lords of Gloop 7. But nothing had prepared him for this level of cosmic-scale annoyance. "Honorable Council members," Vex began, his voice carrying that special tone reserved for delivering really bad news. "The Void Stalker fleet has consumed 17 star systems in the past month. Their mothership is the size of a small moon, armed with reality-warping cannons, and protected by a hull that our best scientists describe as aggressively impossible to penetrate." Admiral Clonk, a pessimistic slug-like being whose species had evolved the ability to sweat existential dread, oozed forward in his mobility chair. "So we're all going to die horribly. I knew this Tuesday felt too optimistic." Dr. Nexus, the Council's resident artificial intelligence whose personality had been programmed by particularly sarcastic engineers, projected his holographic form with arms crossed. "My calculations indicate a 99.97% probability of total galactic extinction within 48 hours. The remaining 0.03% accounts for the possibility that the Void Stalkers might die of laughter watching us fail." General Thorpe, whose warrior culture had spent centuries perfecting the art of glorious death, slammed his massive fist on the table. "Then we die with honor. Though I admit, being vaporized by reality-warping cannons lacks the personal touch of traditional combat." Commander Vex cleared his throat, or the alien equivalent that sounded like a coffee machine having an existential crisis. "Actually, we do have one option. Captain Jake Murphy has volunteered for the mission." The chamber fell silent. You could hear a pin drop, if pins existed in space, which they didn't, but the metaphor stood strong. The human, Admiral Clonk's eye stalks drooped further. The same human who accidentally started a war with the Praxis Empire because he thought their diplomatic greeting was a drinking game. The same human who somehow convinced the Merchant Guild to pay him for stealing their own ships by calling it aggressive quality testing, Dr. Nexus added helpfully. The same human who once used a black hole as a slingshot because he was late for a date, General Thorpe said with what might have been admiration. Commander Vex nodded grimly. "That's the one." As if summoned by their conversation, the chamber doors burst open and Captain Jake Murphy strolled in, looking like he'd just finished a particularly enjoyable lunch. The human had that special combination of confidence and complete disregard for personal safety that made alien military strategists break out in nervous rashes. "Sorry I'm late, folks," Jake said, helping himself to what looked like alien donuts from the refreshment table. "Had to finish watching this really compelling documentary about ancient Earth cooking shows. Did you know humans used to compete over who could make the best cake? Fascinating stuff." Commander Vex stared at him. "Captain Murphy, we're facing the extinction of all life as we know it." Jake paused mid-bite. "Right, the Void Stalker thing. So what's the plan? Please tell me it involves explosions. I've been having a really boring week." "The plan," Vex said slowly, "is for you to infiltrate their mothership and plant a quantum bomb in their power core. It's a suicide mission." Jake finished his alien donut and brushed crumbs off his jacket. "Suicide mission, huh?" He looked around the room at the various expressions of doom and gloom. "For who?" The silence stretched on until Admiral Clonk finally managed for you obviously. "Oh," Jake said, genuinely surprised. "Well, that's a relief. I thought you meant it was suicide for someone competent." Commander Vex's left eye began twitching, which in Zentaurian body language translated roughly to "I'm reconsidering every life choice that led me to this moment." "Captain Murphy, you'll need a crew," he said, sliding a datapad across the table. "We've selected our finest specialists for this critical mission." Jake glanced at the list and immediately handed it back. "Yeah, no thanks. I'll pick my own people. But these are elite operatives trained specifically for dying heroically while following orders." Jake interrupted. "I need people trained for not dying while ignoring orders." "There's a difference." Dr. Nexus's hologram flickered with what might have been curiosity. "And where exactly do you plan to find such individuals?" "Easy. I call my ex-girlfriend." The council exchanged glances that somehow conveyed both horror and fascination. 20 minutes later, pilot Zara Knox swaggered into the chamber like she owned the place, which she probably could have if she'd wanted to steal it. The former smuggler had the kind of reputation that made customs officials break out in cold sweats and insurance companies automatically reject claims. "Jake Murphy," she said, looking him up and down with the expression of someone evaluating a particularly dubious piece of used spacecraft. "When you called and said you needed someone stupid enough to fly into certain death, I thought you were finally asking me to marry you." "Still working up the courage for that conversation," Jake replied cheerfully. This is just regular certain death. Much more casual. Good, because I left my formal dying dress at the cleaners. General Thorpe leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. You are also human. Last time I checked, Zara said. Though after dating this idiot, I sometimes wonder if I lost a few brain cells along the way. Next through the door came Engineer Gus Wrench, a grizzled human who looked like he'd been personally involved in the invention of the wheel and had strong opinions about how they'd improved the design since then. His toolbox was older than some star systems and made concerning rattling sounds when he walked. Jake, you magnificent disaster, Gus said, setting down his toolkit with a thud that made the council chamber vibrate. I heard you need someone to keep a ship running with duct tape, prayers and spite. Lucky for you. I invented 2 of those 3 things. Which 2? Admiral Clonk asked nervously. The important ones, Gus replied, pulling out a roll of silvery tape and kissing it fondly. The final member of Jake's crew practically bounced through the door. Specialist Luna Park looked like she'd stepped out of a recruitment poster for cheerful demolitions experts, if such a thing existed. Her toolkit was notably newer than Gus's and made significantly more alarming sounds. Ooh, are we blowing something up? Luna asked excitedly, her eyes lighting up like a kid who'd just been told Christmas came early. Please tell me we're blowing something up. I brought my new experimental charges that are technically legal in 17 systems. What about the other systems? Commander Vex asked weakly. They're still debating whether complete molecular dissolution counts as an explosion or performance art. Jake clapped his hands together. Perfect. The gang's all here. Now about our ship. We've prepared the state-of-the-art stealth vessel Shadow of Death for your mission, Vex interrupted hopefully. Nah, we'll take the rusty bucket. The council stared at him. Dr. Nexus was the first to speak. Captain, that vessel is held together by what appears to be optimism and several violations of known physics. Exactly, Jake said proudly. The Void Stalkers will never expect anyone to attack them in something that shouldn't technically be able to achieve orbit, let alone interstellar flight. Gus patted his toolkit affectionately. She's got character. That ship does. Talks to you real personal like when something's about to explode. Usually by exploding, Zara added helpfully. Commander Vex looked around at his perfectly organized war room, his meticulously planned mission briefings, and his carefully selected elite operatives, then back at the 4 humans who were treating galactic extinction like a weekend camping trip. This is madness, he whispered. No, Jake said, heading for the door with his crew in tow. This is Tuesday. 3 hours later, the rusty bucket limped away from the space station, with all the grace of a shopping cart with a broken wheel. Commander Vex watched from the observation deck as the ship's engines sputtered, sparked, and somehow managed to achieve faster-than-light travel, despite what appeared to be a complete disregard for the laws of physics. Sir, his aide whispered. Should we begin preparing funeral arrangements? I'm not sure, Vex replied, watching the ship disappear into hyperspace, while trailing what looked suspiciously like confetti. I'm beginning to think death might be more afraid of them than they are of it. Aboard the rusty bucket, Jake's crew had settled into their usual routine of treating mortal peril like a casual road trip. Zara was at the helm, steering through an asteroid field that would make most pilots cry, while Jake sat in the co-pilot's seat with what appeared to be an actual paper map spread across his lap. Jake, Zara said, casually, banking around an asteroid the size of a small moon. Please tell me you're not navigating by that thing again. This is a perfectly good map, Jake protested, holding up what looked like it had been drawn by a child with crayons. My nephew made it in his galactic geography class. See, here's the Void Stalker fleet, and here's us, and this squiggly line shows the fastest route. That squiggly line goes through a black hole. Minor detour. In the engine room, Gus was having what could generously be called a conversation with the ship's power core, though it sounded more like an argument between old friends who'd been married too long. Now listen here, you temperamental piece of cosmic junk, Gus muttered, applying duct tape to what was definitely not supposed to be leaking. I know you're tired, I know you're old, and I know you've got more problems than a soap opera character, but we've got a job to do. The engine responded with a sound like a whale having an existential crisis. Don't you take that tone with me, Gus shot back, adding more tape. I've been keeping you running for 15 years with nothing but spare parts and good intentions. You're going to hold together for one more mission if I have to rebuild you with paper clips and determination. Meanwhile, Luna had converted the cargo bay into what looked like a very cheerful bomb factory. She hummed happily, while organizing explosives that probably violated several interstellar treaties. Luna, Jake called over the intercom. Please tell me you're not making anything that could accidentally vaporize us. Define accidentally, Luna called back cheerfully. Back at the Galactic Command Center, Dr. Nexus was monitoring the Rusty Bucket's progress with the fascination of a scientist watching a particularly interesting train wreck in slow motion. Admiral Clonk, he announced. The humans have just successfully navigated the maelstrom of infinite despair. How? Clonk asked, his eye stalks perking up with morbid curiosity. According to their communications, they played poker during the entire passage and let their autopilot handle the navigation. Their autopilot, a magic 8-ball. Admiral Clonk's species didn't technically have blood pressure, but if they did, his would have just reached dangerous levels. The first real test came when 3 Void Stalker scout ships detected the Rusty Bucket approaching their territory. The sleek, predatory vessels moved with the fluid grace of apex predators closing in on wounded prey. 3 scouts approaching fast, Zara reported, her fingers dancing over controls that looked like they'd been installed by someone with a very loose interpretation of electrical safety codes. They're trying to box us in. Standard evasive maneuvers, Jake asked. When have we ever done anything standard? Zara suddenly accelerated directly toward the lead scout ship, while Luna launched what appeared to be a disco ball from the cargo bay. The makeshift projectile exploded in a shower of sparkles and rainbow lights that completely confused the Void Stalker targeting systems. What in the 17 hells was that? The lead scout transmitted. Tuesday, Jake replied over the comm, just before Zara performed a maneuver that definitely wasn't in any flight manual, using the scout ship's own momentum to slingshot around it and disappear into a nearby nebula. The Void Stalker pilots sat in stunned silence for a moment before their leader managed. Did they just turn a space battle into a dance party? I think so, sir. And did it work? We lost them completely, sir. I need a vacation. Back on the Rusty Bucket, Gus's voice crackled over the intercom, with the satisfaction of someone who just won an argument with the universe. Jake, whatever just happened, it knocked something loose in the hyperdrive. The good news is we're now moving 30% faster than we should be able to. The bad news is, I have no idea why, and I'm pretty sure we're violating at least 3 fundamental laws of physics. Is that a problem? Jake asked. Son, at this point I'm not even sure what physics means anymore. But we're still moving in the right direction, so I'm calling it a win. Dr. Nexus updated his probability calculations. The chances of human success had somehow increased to 12.4%, which made no mathematical sense but perfectly reflected his growing confusion about how humans operated. Commander Vex, he reported dutifully, the humans appear to be succeeding through what I can only describe as weaponized incompetence. Explain. They're doing everything wrong, but they're doing it so creatively that reality seems to be adapting to accommodate them rather than the other way around. Commander Vex stared at the tactical display showing the Rusty Bucket's impossible trajectory through Void Stalker territory, leaving behind a trail of confused enemy scouts, and what his sensors insisted was glitter. I'm beginning to suspect, he said slowly, that humans don't actually have death wishes. They have death threats. The Void Stalker mothership loomed before them like a nightmare that had taken architecture classes. It was roughly the size of Manhattan, if Manhattan had been designed by something that actively hated the concept of joy and painted everything in shades of existential dread. Weapon emplacements bristled from every surface, and the hull seemed to absorb light like it was personally offended by the concept of visibility. Okay team, Jake announced over the ship's intercom, time for phase 1 of the plan. We have a plan? Zara asked, expertly piloting the Rusty Bucket through a debris field of ships that had been less fortunate in their encounters with the mothership. Of course we have a plan. It's a great plan. Luna, remember that box of janitor uniforms you bought at that surplus store? The ones that were supposedly gently used by cosmic sanitation professionals? Luna's voice crackled with excitement. I knew those would come in handy. Gus's voice joined the conversation from the engine room, where he was apparently serenading the hyperdrive. Let me guess, we're going to disguise ourselves as the cleaning crew. See, Gus gets it. Nobody looks twice at janitors. It's like being invisible, but with better job security. 20 minutes later, the 4 humans stood in the cargo bay wearing what could generously be described as uniforms if you squinted and had never actually seen a real uniform before. The outfits were a color that existed somewhere between industrial beige and the dying dreams of accountants, and came complete with name tags that read things like Bob, Steve, Janet, and inexplicably, Kevin Supreme. I got Kevin Supreme, Luna announced proudly, adjusting her utility belt which now carried cleaning supplies alongside enough explosives to level a small city. Why does Kevin get to be supreme? Zara asked, checking her reflection in a piece of polished metal. Because Kevin earned it through dedication and superior floor mopping technique, Jake replied, pulling on rubber gloves that squeaked ominously. Now remember, we're the night shift crew from Cosmic Clean Solutions, here to sanitize the ship before the big victory celebration. What victory celebration? Gus asked. The one they're planning after they destroy all life in the galaxy. I assume they'll want clean floors for the occasion. The infiltration itself went surprisingly smoothly, mainly because the Void Stalkers had apparently never encountered anything quite like humans before. The security checkpoint guard, a creature that looked like it had been designed by committee and that committee had been having a bad day, barely glanced at their obviously fake identification cards. Purpose of visit? The guard asked, in a voice like grinding metal. Deep cleaning, Jake replied cheerfully. We're here about the smell. What smell? The one you'll notice if we don't clean it, Luna added helpfully, hefting her bucket which definitely contained more than standard cleaning supplies. The guard waved them through with what might have been relief. Apparently even cosmic harbingers of destruction had standards about workplace hygiene. Once inside, the team split up according to Jake's surprisingly detailed floor plan, which he'd apparently memorized from a schematic that Zara was pretty sure he'd made up on the spot. Remember, he whispered into their makeshift communicators, which Gus had fashioned from old radio parts and what looked suspiciously like kitchen timers. We're looking for the primary power core. It'll be the biggest, scariest looking thing that's humming ominously. Jake, Zara's voice crackled through the comm, everything on this ship is humming ominously. Then we're looking for the most ominous hum. Luna had made her way to what appeared to be the ship's main corridor, a vast hallway lined with displays showing the destruction of various worlds. She paused to admire the craftsmanship while setting small cheerful charges at structural weak points. You know, she murmured to herself. For an evil empire bent on universal destruction, they really have a sense of style. Very dramatic. I respect the commitment to the aesthetic. A Void Stalker officer approached, towering over her with all the menace of a living shadow wearing a bad attitude. What are you doing, small cleaning creature? It demanded. Luna looked up with her brightest smile. Oh, just removing some stubborn stains. You know how it is. Victory celebrations can get messy. Blood, ichor, the tears of the vanquished. Really hard to get out of the carpeting. Carry on, the officer said, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Meanwhile, Gus had found his way to the engineering section, where he was having what could only be described as a professional consultation with the ship's power systems. Well, I'll be, he muttered, examining displays that hurt to look at directly. This is some fancy work, completely wrong of course, but fancy. No wonder you folks are having efficiency problems. A Void Stalker engineer, whose species appeared to have evolved from the concept of geometric anxiety, approached with curiosity. You understand our systems? It asked. Son, I've been fixing things since before your species discovered fire, assuming you ever did discover fire and didn't just learn to harness pure malevolence. Your problem is right here. Gus pointed to a display. Your quantum flux inhibitor is calibrated for maximum dramatic effect instead of optimal energy transfer. Very impressive looking, terrible for actual performance. But the manual says the manual was written by engineers who prioritized looking scary over being efficient. Here, let me show you. And somehow, impossibly, Gus began explaining to a cosmic horror how to improve its own technology, using terms like cosmic carburetor and universal fuel injection. Zara had taken the most direct route to the ship's center, mainly because she'd gotten lost twice and decided to follow the signs that said Doom Control Center in 17 different languages. Jake, she whispered into her comm, I think I found the bridge. Also, I may have accidentally started a small revolution in the cafeteria. What happened in the cafeteria? Turns out cosmic horrors have very strong opinions about proper food handling procedures. Who knew? But it was Jake who found the real prize. A massive chamber at the ship's heart where the Void Stalker Queen herself held court. She was magnificent in the way that natural disasters are magnificent, sitting on a throne that looked like it had been carved from crystallized nightmares and upholstered with the fabric of space-time itself. Jake approached with his mop bucket, whistling what sounded suspiciously like an old Earth pop song. Excuse me, Your Majesty, he said politely. Sorry to interrupt, but I need to clean around your throne. Health Department regulations. The Queen, who had probably never been addressed so casually in her existence, looked down at this small creature with something that might have been curiosity. You dare approach the destroyer of worlds with cleaning supplies? Ma'am, with respect, I've cleaned up after 3 teenagers and a dog who thought the living room was his personal bathroom. After that, destroying worlds is just Tuesday afternoon. And then Jake did something that no being in the galaxy had ever attempted before. He started flirting with the Void Stalker Queen using terrible human pickup lines. Are you made of dark matter? Because you're invisible to my heart, but I know you're there. The Queen stared at him. Did it hurt when you fell from the cosmic void? Because you look like you've been through some stuff. What are you doing? She asked, genuinely confused. Lady, I'm trying to ask you out but I'm getting mixed signals. Are you interested in maybe grabbing coffee after you finish ending all existence? I know a great place. Dr. Nexus, monitoring from the command center, updated his probability calculations. The chances of mission success had somehow jumped to 847%, which was mathematically impossible but perfectly captured his mental state. Commander, he reported weakly, I believe Captain Murphy is attempting to seduce the embodiment of universal destruction. Is it working? I honestly can't tell anymore. While Jake continued his unprecedented attempt at interdimensional romance, the rest of his crew had been busy turning the Voidstalker mothership into what could generously be described as a learning experience for its inhabitants. Luna had reached the power core chamber, a vast space filled with pulsing energy conduits and machinery that hummed with the kind of ominous purpose that suggested it was personally responsible for several genocides. The quantum bomb in her cleaning supply bucket looked almost modest by comparison. Okay, little guy, she whispered to the device, patting it affectionately. Time to make some new friends. Now, where's the best place to put you for maximum dramatic effect? She consulted Jake's hastily drawn installation diagram, which appeared to have been sketched on a napkin during lunch. According to his notes, the optimal placement was wherever looks the most important and glowy. Well, that's helpful, Luna muttered, looking around at a room where literally everything was important and glowy. Eeny meeny, miny moe. She selected a particularly impressive-looking power coupling that was surrounded by warning signs in 17 languages. All variations of "Do not touch," or reality will become very upset. Perfect, Luna said, carefully placing the bomb and setting the timer. 20 minutes should give us plenty of time to get out and grab snacks on the way home. Meanwhile, Gus had somehow ended up in an impromptu technical consultation with half the ship's engineering staff. Word had spread through the Voidstalker ranks that the small cleaning creature actually understood their technology better than they did. See, your problem is right here, Gus explained to a gathering of cosmic horrors who hung on his every word. You're running your reality warpers at maximum power all the time. That's like driving a car with the pedal to the floor constantly. Sure, it looks impressive, but you're burning through components faster than a politician burns through campaign promises. A senior engineer, whose species had apparently evolved from the concept of aggressive geometry, leaned forward with interest. But the manuals clearly state that maximum power projection demonstrates our superiority. Son, the manuals were written by whoever sold you this equipment, and I guarantee they're laughing all the way to whatever passes for a bank in your dimension. You want real superiority, efficiency, reliability, the ability to destroy civilizations without having to stop for maintenance every 3-star systems. The assembled engineers murmured among themselves in what sounded like respectful agreement. Now, if you'll excuse me, Gus said, checking his watch, I need to get back to work. We've got about 15 minutes before things get interesting around here. Zara had made her way to the ship's hangar bay, where she was admiring the Voidstalker Queen's personal shuttle. It was sleek, fast, and looked like it could outrun bad news with room to spare. Now that's a nice ride, she murmured, running her hand along the hull. Jake's going to love this. A hangar technician approached, curious about the cleaning person who seemed unusually interested in spacecraft specifications. That is the Queen's personal transport, it said proudly, capable of faster-than-light travel, equipped with reality-shifting drives, and completely impossible to steal. Impossible, huh? Zara grinned. I like a challenge. The security systems alone would vaporize any unauthorized user within microseconds. What if the user was really unauthorized, like aggressively unauthorized? The technician considered this. Suppose that might confuse the targeting systems. Excellent. Also, is that a snack compartment? Because I'm getting kind of hungry. Back in the throne room, Jake's unconventional diplomatic approach had achieved something that military strategists across the galaxy would later describe as impossible, inappropriate, and somehow effective. The Voidstalker Queen was actually laughing. You are the strangest creature I have encountered in 10,000 years of existence, she said, her voice like distant thunder, mixed with genuine amusement. You stand before the destroyer of worlds and ask about coffee preferences. Hey, destroying worlds is hard work, Jake replied, continuing to mop around her throne with dedication that suggested he took his cover identity seriously. Everyone needs caffeine, even cosmic entities of pure destruction need a pick-me-up now and then. And you truly believe that I would grab coffee with you? Look, Your Majesty, I'm not saying we have to start with coffee, we could work up to it. Maybe begin with destroying a small moon together, see how that goes, then move on to light refreshments. The Queen's laughter was interrupted by Gus's voice crackling through Jake's concealed communicator. Jake, we've got about 10 minutes before the fireworks start. Also, I may have accidentally improved their engine efficiency by 40%. They're going to be very confused about their fuel bills next month. Copy that, Gus. Everyone, time to implement exit strategy alpha. We have an exit strategy alpha. Zara's voice joined the conversation. We do now. Luna, how's our surprise package coming along? All set, boss. Though I have to say, their security down here is really more like helpful suggestions. I've been getting advice from the maintenance staff about optimal blast patterns. Excellent. Zara, please tell me you found us a ride home. Oh, I found us a ride, all right. The Queen's personal shuttle. It's got snacks. The Voidstalker Queen's expression shifted from amusement to something that might have been alarm. Wait, what are you, Your Majesty? Jake said, backing toward the throne room exit while somehow managing to keep mopping. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. You're lovely, your ship is impressive, and your decorating sense is wonderfully apocalyptic. However, I'm afraid we need to be leaving now. Leaving, but you just... The Queen paused, her ancient mind finally processing the implications of the conversation she'd been overhearing. You're not actually cleaning staff, are you? Ma'am, I want you to know that this has been the most successful suicide mission in human history. Also, you might want to evacuate the ship in the next 8 minutes or so. 8 minutes until what? Jake paused at the throne room door, giving her his most charming smile. Until we find out if that coffee offer is still good. And then he was gone, leaving the destroyer of worlds sitting alone on her crystallized nightmare throne, staring at the spot where a small human had just flirted with her, cleaned her floors, and apparently doomed her ship, all while maintaining perfect customer service etiquette. For the first time in 10 millennia, the Voidstalker Queen was completely at a loss for words. Alert all stations, she finally managed to say to her guards. We have been, I don't even know what we've been, but evacuate the ship. Now, Your Majesty, what should we tell the crew? She considered this for a moment. Tell them we've encountered something far more dangerous than any weapon in the galaxy. What's that, Your Majesty? Human customer service. 6 minutes later, the crew of the Rusty Bucket was aboard the Queen's shuttle, which Zara had not so much stolen as aggressively borrowed with extreme prejudice. The ship's snack compartment had indeed proven to be exceptional, stocked with delicacies from 17 different dimensions. These are actually pretty good, Jake said, munching on something that tasted like cosmic cinnamon rolls. Luna, status report, 2 minutes and counting. I also left a thank you note for the engineering staff. They were so helpful. Gus, how's our new ride handling? Like a dream, son. Like a beautiful, impossible dream that violates 3 laws of physics and runs on what I can only describe as aggressive optimism. I may be in love. Zara, get us clear of the blast radius. Already on it. Though I have to say, for a ship belonging to the embodiment of universal destruction, it has surprisingly comfortable seats. Nexus watched from the command center as the stolen shuttle cleared the mothership's perimeter at impossible speed, leaving behind a trail of what his sensors identified as sparkles and confusion. Commander Vex, he reported, his voice hollow with the weight of computational impossibility. The humans have successfully completed their mission. The bomb will detonate in 47 seconds. And the crew, escaping in the Queen's personal shuttle while apparently having a picnic. Of course they are. The quantum bomb detonated exactly on schedule, turning the massive Voidstalker mothership into what astronomers would later describe as a very pretty light show that somehow spelled out thank you for your cooperation in 17 languages. 3-star systems away, Jake's crew watched the explosion through the shuttle's rear viewport while sharing alien snacks and arguing about who got to keep the ship. So, Zara said, raising what appeared to be a bottle of interdimensional wine, successful suicide mission. The most successful, Jake agreed, clinking his glass against hers. Though I think we may have accidentally redefined what suicide mission means. For who? Luna asked, echoing Jake's original question. They all turned to look at the expanding cloud of sparkles where the Voidstalker mothership used to be. Apparently, Gus said thoughtfully, for everyone except us. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. You could have heard a pin drop, if anyone had been brave enough to move and risk making noise. Commander Vex stood at the center of it all, staring at the tactical display that showed absolutely nothing where the Voidstalker mothership used to be, except for a slowly expanding cloud of glitter and what appeared to be thank you notes written in cosmic dust. So, Admiral Clunk finally managed, his eye stalks twitching with what might have been a nervous breakdown. The humans completed the impossible mission. Successfully, Doctor. Nexus added, his voice carrying the tone of someone whose understanding of reality had been recently and thoroughly renovated. With 0 casualties, maximum efficiency, and what I can only describe as aggressive politeness. They also, General Thorpe said, consulting his own tactical readout, somehow managed to steal the enemy flagship, improve the mothership's engineering efficiency before destroying it, start a labor revolution in the enemy cafeteria, and apparently got the Void Stalker Queen's personal communication frequency. Commander Vex looked up from his display. They what now? Jake Murphy left his contact information with the Queen. She's been sending messages asking about that coffee date. The council chamber fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of minds trying to process information that didn't fit into any known category of military strategy or basic logic. Sir, Vex's aide whispered, the humans are requesting permission to dock. Of course they are, probably want to file an expense report. 15 minutes later, Jake and his crew strolled into the council chamber like they'd just returned from a particularly successful grocery run. Jake was carrying what appeared to be a souvenir bag. Luna was wearing a Void Stalker helmet as a hat. Gus had somehow acquired a toolkit that looked suspiciously advanced, and Zara was eating what could only be described as weaponized candy from the Queen's personal snack collection. Mission accomplished, Jake announced cheerfully, dropping into a chair that definitely wasn't meant for humans. Also, we brought back presents. He reached into his bag and began distributing items like a cosmic Santa Claus with questionable judgment. Commander Vex, this is a quantum displacement matrix. The Queen said it's great for home security. Admiral Clunk, interdimensional stress balls. Dr. Nexus, a complete technical manual for reality warping engines, written in what I'm told is beginner's universal destruction. And General Thorpe, a ceremonial weapon that's apparently been used to end civilizations. The Queen said you'd appreciate the craftsmanship. General Thorpe accepted the weapon with something that might have been reverence. This is the Blade of Infinite Sorrow. It's mentioned in every warrior culture's legends. Yeah, she said it was just collecting dust in a closet. Figured it needed a good home. Commander Vex examined his gift with the expression of someone who'd just been handed a live grenade disguised as a paperweight. Captain Murphy, exactly how did you acquire these items? Trade negotiations. Turns out the Void Stalker Queen was really lonely. 10,000 years of destroying civilizations doesn't leave much time for social interaction. We had a very productive conversation about work-life balance. You negotiated with the embodiment of universal destruction. Hey, everyone needs someone to talk to. Even cosmic entities of pure malevolence have feelings. Who knew? Dr. Nexus processed this information with visible difficulty. Captain, are you telling us that you solved the greatest threat to galactic civilization through therapy, more like aggressive friendship? Though I did give her some relationship advice. Apparently, when you spend your entire existence destroying things, it's hard to build meaningful connections. Luna piped up from where she was examining her new helmet. She's actually really nice once you get past the whole destroyer of worlds thing. We're going to start a book club. A book club? Admiral Clonk repeated slowly. Romance novels, specifically. She's got a lot of catching up to do. Zara swallowed her interdimensional candy and added, also she's considering a career change. Maybe something in interior decorating. She's got a real eye for dramatic lighting. The council sat in stunned silence, trying to process the fact that the greatest threat to galactic civilization had apparently been neutralized through the power of friendship, small talk, and relationship counseling. There is, however, one small complication. Jake continued, reaching into his bag again. She wants to join the Galactic Alliance. She wants to what? Commander Vex's voice cracked on the last word. Apparently destroying civilizations was getting boring. She's looking for new challenges. I suggested volunteer work, maybe habitat restoration, possibly some light terraforming. You know, use her powers for good instead of universal annihilation. General Thorpe leaned forward, his warrior instincts finally catching up with the conversation. You're telling us that the destroyer of worlds wants to become a gardener. Environmental restoration specialist. Jake corrected. She's very excited about the career change. Already started practicing on some dead planets near her old territory. Brought them back to life, added some nice forests, maybe a few lakes. Real therapeutic work. Dr. Nexus's probability calculations had given up entirely, and were now just displaying a single message. Error, reality not found. Captain Murphy, Commander Vex said slowly, in the span of one day you have somehow turned our greatest enemy into a potential ally, solved the existential threat to all life in the galaxy, and apparently started a cosmic romance. Is there anything else you'd like to report? Jake brightened. Oh yeah, almost forgot. We're going to need a bigger parking space. The Queen's shuttle is about 3 times the size of our usual docking bay, and Gus refuses to give it back. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, Gus said defensively. Runs on pure crystallized starlight, and what I can only describe as enthusiastic quantum mechanics. I may have to adopt it. Also, Zara added, we may have accidentally started a cultural revolution among the Void Stalker fleet. Turns out they were all just following orders because they thought they had to. Nobody ever asked if they actually wanted to destroy civilizations. And, Admiral Clonk asked weakly. Most of them want to try other careers. There's apparently a lot of interest in the arts. Who knew that cosmic horrors could be so creative? Luna nodded enthusiastically. I'm going to help them set up a pottery studio. You should see what they can do with clay when they're not focused on universal destruction. The council chamber fell into what could only be described as contemplative chaos. Years of military strategy, diplomatic protocol and existential dread had just been replaced by the most successful mission in galactic history, accomplished through methods that defied every known law of warfare physics and common sense. So Jake said, standing up and brushing interdimensional crumbs off his uniform, what's our next impossible mission? Commander Vex looked at him with an expression that combined terror, admiration, and the dawning realization that the definition of impossible had just been permanently revised. Captain Murphy, he said finally, I'm beginning to think that the word impossible doesn't mean what we thought it meant. Nah, Jake replied, heading for the door with his crew trailing behind him like a parade of cheerful chaos. It just means nobody's asked the right human yet. As the doors closed behind them, Admiral Clonk turned to his fellow council members with a question that would define galactic military strategy for generations to come. Should we be afraid of what they'll do next, or excited about it? Commander Vex considered this for a long moment, then looked at the thank you note he'd just received from the former destroyer of worlds, complete with a recipe for what she called cosmic brownies, and an invitation to her upcoming housewarming party. Yes, he said finally. Definitely yes. And somewhere in the depths of space, on a formerly dead planet now blooming with impossible flowers, the Void Stalker Queen was learning to knit while planning her next date with the strangest, most wonderful creature she'd ever met. After all, destroying worlds was easy. Making friends was the real adventure.